Hands are notoriously difficult to draw, realistic or simplified. I find them difficult because they have a more complex anatomy to them, more elements to think about, especially when paired with the different perspectives and angles. Then there's applying this to character design. You may be able to draw a character's hand in one particular pose, but what about all the other different possible combinations? This is why learning fundamental structure can lead to the most successful outcome for your designs, and is something I want to improve on myself. In this video, I will take you through several studies and ideas I explored to level up my own hand drawing. Number 1 will cover simplification and perspective. Following on is adding accessories and then discussing contact and character. Simplification is one of the best ways to learn about the hand structure. By separating each part into simple shapes, it makes it easier to replicate those shapes from different angles. I started by using boxes, trying to break the hand down into its most basic structure. It was really hard to not jump straight in with stylization. In places I can see I already try and automatically add curves and details, but I stuck to the boxes as best as I could. It was great at training the brain to focus on simplicity rather than getting lost in the details too quickly, which I think is what tripped me up in a lot of my own designs. After a while, I focused more on just splitting the hands up into sections, so now not necessarily boxes with straight lines, but looking at curves and the unique shapes hands can make when squashed and stretched. While this exercise was good, I felt that I wasn't giving the hands enough curve. So I tried another technique of adding lines and points for the fingers at first, focusing on how they curve around the palm of the hand, then constructing the fingers over those lines. This was a pretty successful experiment and I felt it gave my hand studies more life, and it then was a little bit easier to make the proportions more accurate. Next was focusing on perspective. So what if you needed to draw the hand in the same pose but from a different perspective? This is where simplification comes in handy. Remembering the hand's basic anatomical structure makes it easier to draw the proportions more accurately. I did a quick exercise where I photographed my own hand in the same pose but from different camera angles and then drew over the pictures, splitting it up into smaller shapes. I really tried to observe how the shapes changed depending on the perspective, which was really difficult to dissect as there's a lot of visual information to take into account. Another important section of perspective is foreshortening. This is something I commonly struggle with, especially when you have the hand out in front of you, connecting the wrists and the arm, as well as how to draw all the fingers out in front. I think the reason this has taken me so long to get better at is that I have a bad habit of avoiding this subject. I don't really draw characters from dramatic angles, not that you necessarily have to, but it is something I personally want to try and do more. Dramatic or foreshortened perspectives can make the overall design more dynamic and add a sense of storytelling to your artwork, as well as being more confident in drawing your character's hands and other features. For this next chapter, I narrowed down the 3 different subjects which can help to elevate hand design: accessories, contact, and character. Let's start with the first one, accessories. At this point, I may understand the basic structure of a hand, but what about when they are paired with accessories, such as jewellery, gloves, bandages, and so on? This adds a whole new layer on top and can make drawing hands much more difficult. Or does it? If you apply the same technique of simplifying the structure, then it may still be time consuming to draw, but it can be done successfully. I normally don't give my characters hand accessories because I worry it will be too fiddly to draw, but studying and breaking down references has been great for making it feel more doable. Drawing the hand by itself is one thing, but what about when it needs to make contact with something else, such as another hand, a surface, maybe it's holding an object? This presents another challenge as you have to draw the hand with an item obscuring or warping part of it. My solution is that how it all stems back to simplification. Break down the object in its simplest form, making it easier to understand how the hand fits around it, then build up the drawing from that sketch. Drawing hands is challenging, but what about when you need to apply this to character design? Hands are quite an expressive part of the body and can show emotion as effectively as facial expressions in some cases. They can tell you a lot about a character and can be a great storytelling tool once you've mastered the basics. Characters' hands can have many different variations, and understanding simplification again will help make the drawing process easier, no matter how complex or simple the character's hands are. It's not necessarily that I want the hands to be the main focal point of every character I design. I almost find it more challenging to draw them when they aren't the focus, or if you're drawing this character from a distance, so you need to simplify them in a way that is readable and looks good. To end this video, I made a series of hand studies in black and white, really trying to utilise everything I've learnt from this small project. I chose some photo references that obscures part of the hand or has it in a tricky perspective with foreshortening, and also added some different lighting and digital texture experiments. I think line work is definitely something I want to work on more, maybe try and experiment a bit with sketchier styles in future. The line and point technique definitely helped me with more difficult perspectives, but I want to make sure I try out and master other methods which can be just as handy as this one. I did sort of go for a graphic novel look to these particular hand studies, which I quite like, but I think I'll definitely try out more styles in future. I do feel that the proportions and perspective are pretty good for the studies, and I can feel myself getting more confident with drawing hands. Another thing I noticed I want to learn more from these studies is not just simplifying the hand shape, but how to draw the small details on hands, such as lines and creases and so on. I wouldn't say I'm at a point where I'm completely satisfied with my hand drawing for characters. I think one thing I find difficult is maintaining the consistency of the hand's own visual identity, probably because I never really focused on it before now. So I'm hoping that bringing more awareness to my hand drawing will improve my design process and make it a lot more enjoyable. All in all, hands are not the easiest to draw, but it can feel really rewarding when you start to understand how they work. I think making sure that I keep up the studying will benefit me in the long run, and keep me on my toes since there's always something new to learn. Anyway, we shall see in my future character designs if I've been able to apply this studying, and I wish you the best of luck in your own studies. Thank you for joining the video, and I will see you in the next one.